Ah, Louisiana. I'm Chef John Folse, welcoming you to this great state of ours. These beautiful plantation homes reflect the fascinating history of our culture and cuisine, and I'd like to share this story with you. Why not join me and some of my friends as we visit the plantation homes of our state and cook up another great Taste of Louisiana?
Funding for this program was provided in part by Bruce Foods Corporation, makers of Louisiana Gold and other distinctive Louisiana-style food products. Additional funding is provided by the Louisiana Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism. Gumbo, etouffee, jambalaya, beignet. Come pass a good time in Louisiana and say things you've never seen before.
When David Weeks built his plantation on the banks of Bayou Teche in 1834, little did he realize that the home would remain in his family throughout its entire history. The Weeks family proved to be great record keepers and kept journals on everything from lifestyle in the 1800s to advancements in medicine and agriculture, and even a few notes on fashion. It was because of the over 17,000 original documents discovered in the attic of this house that today we have a much better understanding of life and times on an early Louisiana plantation. I'm Chef John Folse. Welcome to Shadows-on-the-Teche. Under construction from 1831 to 1834, Shadows was built by David Weeks, a wealthy plantation owner, as a townhouse for his wife and 6 children. 2 early paintings showing the home depict life on Main Street in New Iberia in the mid to late 18th century. Today, the home is owned and operated by the National Institute for Historic Preservation and is the only home in Louisiana with this honor. On display here are many of the journals and other historical items found in the attic of this home, including this lace dress worn by a daughter of the family in this very early painting. This museum of early plantation life also contains many of the original furnishings owned by the Weeks family. The rear of the home faces Bayou Teche, an Indian word meaning crooked snake. This bayou flows through Acadiana and became a watery highway for the Cajuns. Not only did it facilitate trade and commerce, but inspired many legends and ballads. It was Weeks Hall, the great-grandson of the builder, who moved into the home in 1922 and began restoration of the formal gardens. He was an artist from New Orleans who had lived many years in Paris and was influenced by the gardens of Europe. Although originally 150 acres, today only 2.5 acres encompasses the gardens and grounds. Much of the plants and flowers are of Louisiana origin. However, when walking through the gardens, you'll see vast borders of cast iron plants, asparagus ferns, and bamboo. Although decorative today, bamboo was grown in plantation days as a construction material used especially in furniture making. At one time, the bamboo groves were used to shield the house from the busy traffic along Main Street, and it's being added to the gardens today for the same purpose. The subtropical climate of South Louisiana provides a lush environment for many exotic species, such as this ginger plant. It may not be good for seasoning, but it's great for visual appeal and for its wonderful fragrance. As in those early paintings, Shadows, with its beautiful galleries, statues, and gardens, has influenced life on Bayou Teche for many generations and will certainly continue to do so today and for generations to come. Imagine walking up into the attic of a home you've just purchased and finding 17,000 original family documents. Well, that's exactly what happened at Shadows, and it's because of these documents that today we can put on thematic exhibits every year at Shadows depicting plantation life. Every year from the first Saturday in August all the way to Thanksgiving, you can come in and see some of these, pictorials of what life was like in the 18th century. They've done everything there from, food, obviously, social events, and medicine. How did we cure ourselves back then? Well, coming to visit with me in the kitchen today is an expert on folk medicine. In fact, Rebecca Henry has put on a seminar at Shadows, and she also writes for Creole Magazine about some of the remedies used not only back in plantation days, but today as well. So I'm really excited about learning a little bit about plantation medicine and early Louisiana medicine. Well, the foods that were created at Shadows were really a very interesting blend between some of the Spanish, the French, the English, because it's right in the heart of Acadiana, and it was touched by all of those different cultures. And the first dish I'm going to do for you today is a very interesting dish. It's a kind of a chicken casserole that's topped with crab meat and artichokes, and we put it all together in a black iron skillet. We can bake it, or we can just saute it and use the Dutch oven to cook it, but it's a very interesting dish. And the first thing we have to do is to debone the chicken, and I got to thinking about that. Normally we throw the bones away. Well, I'm always telling you about a stock, so I want you to look at this platter here and see what I've done with the bones of the chicken. Here's the bones taken right off of the breast, and instead of throwing them away, I'm going to put them into a pot with these quartered onions. Of course, you can even leave the peel on. I've got some garlic that I've cut right through the center to expose all of the cloves. Here's some carrots that I've sliced, and some celery, herbs, any type of herbs that you would like, and peppercorns and bay leaf. Now, I would put all of this into a pot with about a gallon of water and let this boil for about 30 to 45 minutes so that all of that great chicken flavor will be put right into the stock pot. And that's what you see me use so often when I say just dump a little chicken stock into the pot. Of course, you can go into the store and get cans of chicken consomme or even the little bouillon cubes, but it's never as good as what you're going to throw right into the garbage can. So I wanted to share that with you before I actually started to cook this wonderful chicken, crab, and artichoke casserole. Look at my platter here, and this is the real stuff. This is the good stuff here. I've got the chicken breast, as you can see, totally deboned, and look how nice they are. Of course, they're going to cook in a short time, too. I'm leaving the skin on. You could actually take the skin off if you're concerned about some of those fats. And jumbo lump crab meat. Look at the size of the lumps of this crab coming out of the lakes and Gulf of Mexico here in Louisiana. And, of course, here's those artichokes. And I was very excited to learn that artichokes grew all over South Louisiana gardens. I always thought you had to go into departments or into a food store to get them, but hey, they were all over in the gardens in the early days. And to cook all of this, I'm going to begin in my black iron skillet with a little bit oil. Again, you can use butter, margarine, buttery flavored oil, whatever you normally like to use. I'm going to kick this fire up here, and I would season the chicken breast with whatever spices I would like to use in my own house. I tell people, use whatever you grew up with. That's the important thing in cooking, I think, is that the flavors remind you of growing up. And, of course, to put salt and pepper, that's always a good beginning. I'm going to season inside and out, and then I'm going to put a touch of this Louisiana pepper sauce because I want a little spice, obviously. And then I could put some dried basil, thyme, some of the dried or fresh herbs, either one. And then I'm going to dust it and dust all of these breasts in a little bit flour. Now, the flour has also been lightly seasoned, and the reason we dust things in flour is we want to coat the chicken so that we can put a nice protective outer coating to make sure that we keep the juices in the meat, especially white meat, which kind of has a tendency to dry out quickly. So we're going to just kind of dust it and shake off all the excess. You don't want to have this isn't Southern fried chicken. You don't want a heavy coating. Now I'm going to start skin side down in my saute pan, and you can see that that black iron skillet gets hot quickly here. I'm going to put it skin side down because I want to render those fats quickly right into the bottom of the saute pan. And I would let it cook here for, I guess 2 to 3 minutes on each side just to go ahead and seal it. You want to make sure that all those juices stay right into the chicken. So we're going to sit it in that oil, let it sit there for 3 or 4 minutes, and once it gets brown, then, of course, I could turn them over. Now, let's assume here that they've been cooking long enough. Of course, remember, this is going to be a Dutch oven style of cooking, so they're going to continue to cook for a pretty good while. Once all of that's in the pan like this, then, of course, I can add my other seasonings. Now, I always cook with the Trinity, onion, celery, bell pepper, so I would make sure that we keep those flavors in the pot. I wouldn't want to cook anything and not have that onion, celery, bell pepper taste of South Louisiana. That's very important to us. And I think, you know, with this subtropical climate, we had so many great vegetables to choose from. Why not use them? So you see a lot of these things going into all of our pots. Of course, I'm going to throw a little garlic. Got to have that good garlic flavor. Move that around the chicken. And then I can put my artichokes. I'm just using cubed artichoke hearts. You can get them in a can. Of course, you can use the fresh ones as well. Or the bottoms of the artichoke. Always look for the canned items that are chopped or broken. They're a lot cheaper than the whole hearts or the bottom. So if you're going to do this dish, buy the pieces rather than the whole. Once all of that's in, then I can add my jumbo lump crab. Look how nice that is. Imagine the flavor here, huh? Just think of all of those nice ingredients going down into that pan. I'm going to put some fresh basil. I'm going to even put some oregano because I like the flavor of oregano in this dish. Again, the Spanish influence. And once that's in, I can put another little touch of salt for the crab meat as well as the artichokes, a little pepper, and now a touch of chicken stock. I'm going to just pour a little bit chicken stock down in there from those bones and a touch of heavy whipping cream. This is going to be a really nice, rich dish. And of course, you can eliminate the heavy whipping cream. Put some of that pasteurized skim milk if you'd like. You don't have to use heavy whipping cream or those heavy fat items if you don't want to. Now, the flour on the chicken breast will create a wonderful sauce down into the bottom of this pan. I could put it in the oven right now and actually let this cook in the oven on about 350 degrees for about 45 minutes. It would be great. Or I can just take a lid from my black iron skillet and put that lid right on top of the pot, and now it becomes a Dutch oven. That's exactly what it is. It is baking the chicken right in that saute pan on top of the stove. But remember to lower the flame. Very important. You don't want to scorch that cream in there. And after about 30 minutes, it's just as if you'd have done it in the oven. Great flavor. Let me show you what it looks like once it's all done. Take a look at this wonderful platter of this. It's a casserole, basically, of chicken that's topped with crab meat and artichoke. You can see the chicken breast nice and brown right here. So, wonderful dish. You want to try this. It's easy to do, and you can use some of the less expensive cuts of chicken. Just put the legs and thighs. You don't have to use chicken breast in this. That's just what I chose to use today. Okay, another great dish that I discovered at Shadows is a dish that we kind of played with a little bit to come up with a wonderful dessert that we serve every day just about here in South Louisiana, and it's a lighter version of our typical pecan pie. Instead of putting all of those gooey sugars and brown sugars in, we use a little cane syrup, a little light syrup, and then we put orange juice in. Again, two good ingredients of South Louisiana, orange juice and cane syrup. And I want you to look in this bowl right here. I've got some flour and, of course, sugar. I've got about a cup of sugar. I'm going to put in 4 eggs, and I'm going to whip this around just like that to mix it all together. And, you know, pecans have been with us for a long, long time in Louisiana. And though in the early days they first found pecans in Illinois, the explorers found the pecans in Illinois as they were coming down the river and actually called it Carna Illinois is the real name, the scientific name for pecans. But the greatest pecan area in America today is Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas. So we use a lot of pecans, but think of pralines and all those other things. I think we use more pecans than anybody else. Okay, once those things go in, I'm going to put a little bit of this light, oh, gee, look here, I knocked my vanilla over there. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of this light syrup in here. And I wish I had a spoon to scoop up the vanilla. But you do that all the time, don't you? I just don't have to do it in front of you, right? Okay, once all of this is in here, the syrup, I'm going to add a little bit orange juice. Now, this is going to really lighten it up, give it some really nice light look. And the inside is going to almost look like a cream pie once it cooks because of that orange juice rather than the syrup. Now, if I have any vanilla left, I'm going to put a little touch of that in here. About a 1/4 cup will be perfect. And then, of course, a little touch of cinnamon, a little bit nutmeg, and I'm going to end it with some orange zest to give it even more of that orange flavor. So stirring all of this around, I'm going to put it into a prepared pie crust. And the perfect pie crust, I tell people all the time, is a pie crust that's made with about, you can do it in a food processor, about 1.5 cups of flour, 1/4 pound of butter, and just a little pinch of salt and some water, about 1/4 cup of water. Blend it around for just a minute. Don't overwork pie crust. That's the biggest problem people have. They overwork it and it becomes tough. So once the pie crust is done, I'm going to add a little bit of my Louisiana cane syrup, which gives it that really great flavor. And with the vanilla and all those other wonderful things, I can have a perfect flavored pie. Put some praline liqueur in it. That's good too. I'll pour my pecans. This is about 2 cups almost of chopped pecans. And then right down into the pie crust. It's going to be really wonderful. Look how light it is too. It doesn't have all that dark flavor that you normally associate with a pecan pie. Now I'm going to also garnish the top of it with some of these whole pecans. Look at these nice little things. I'm going to just put them about where I think the division of the pie is going to be once it's done. I think you have the general idea here. And then I would bake it in a 425-degree oven for about 10 minutes, lower the heat to about 325, and cook it for 45 minutes, and I'm going to have a perfect pie. In fact, I have one that's already done, so I want to show you what it looks like here. Just take a look at this beautiful orange cane syrup pecan pie right here. It is absolutely exquisite. Look how pretty it is, nice and light too. Okay, a couple of other dishes that I found while rummaging around Shadows. I have a really nice braised red cabbage with apples. Of course, you could use any fruit. It makes a wonderful side dish, and it cooks in about 2 minutes. Just saute the red cabbage quickly and add the fruit to it. A wonderful, wonderful flavor. And another dish that I think they use probably a lot as an hors d'oeuvre. They would have used this shrimp pâté, and they served an herb mayonnaise with it. They just put fresh herbs in the mayonnaise and just made this wonderful shrimp pâté, a really nice dish from Shadows Plantation, Shadows-on-the-Teche. Okay, now I talked to you about my good buddy Rebecca Henry just a couple of minutes ago, and here she is. She is an expert in folk medicine. What do you have here?
You have all these medicines that you were so curious about.
Oh, I tell you what, we're going to talk about this. It's so good to have you in the kitchen.
Being here.
We want to talk about all of these kind of things, but before we talk medicine, you and I have to cook one dish. Why don't we take this and put it right on the end of my counter here. Now, watch my vanilla. You know, I have a bad habit of knocking vanilla over here on the counter, right?
All right.
Let me move this out of the way. And what I'm doing here, I'm going to make a nice salad. You and I talked about about the necessity of eating good, fresh vegetables and everything. And that's one of the things that we lack so much today. Here in the bowl, I've got some navy beans, and these beans have been just poached, and of course, just until they're nice and tender. Then, to make this salad, this white bean salad, I'm going to put in some celery. This is all good roughage, I guess, right?
Sure.
Celery and garlic, some little pretty Bermuda onions, and of course some smoked sausage. The smoked sausage is all cooked, and we put it down into the bowl. Why don't you stir that for me right there? And then I'm going to add just mix it all up in there. I'm going to add a little olive oil to it. And once that goes in, then I'm going to add some red wine vinegar. I'm just sprinkle some down, and then I would let this marinate for, maybe 2 or 3 hours. Overnight, of course, it's always best. And then I would take a big tomato like this and stuff the marinated beans down into the center. And let me show you what it looks like when it's all done. I have one of them finished right here. Take a look at that, how pretty that is. And, you know, it's not only tasty, but I'm sure it's good for you, right?
Yes, a lot of good nutrition.
Yeah, really good nutrition. Let's take a look at all the great things you have in the basket here. Sure. Because I know there's a lot of wonderful. We've been talking medicine and folk medicine for so long. What is this?
You know, the other day we talked about all those things, but I want you to look at this bottle. Can you imagine a bottle like this fitting in your medicine cabinet? It was not just enough medicine for the family, but nearly for the entire community.
So they would make the medicines and put them in these gigantic, big old bottles. Gee, I tell you what, I wonder what medicine cabinet would have held that.
Probably sassafras tea was in there or something.
Now, this is medicine, but this looks like honey to me.
Well, that's honey. You mixed honey and soda, a little twist of lemon, and a little alcohol, and that was good for cough.
So if I had a cough, we would mix up.
Yes.
Now, a lot of cough syrups today have honey in it.
It's like
right?
then you take your cough drops, that honey lemon cough drops, and
it would be good for you.
Sure.
What about say something like a high blood pressure, which is hard to treat? Is there
high
anything?
blood pressure, your garlic was good for high blood pressure, and a little vinegar or Epsom salt, a little pinch of Epsom salt on the tongue.
Now, somebody did say that if you eat a lot of garlic or if you drink a glass of red wine, it's good for high blood pressure. So I guess that's true.
It is.
Well, you know, I use a lot of garlic in my cooking. I'll never have high blood pressure.
Well, good.
What's that big leaf you have right here?
That's a catawba leaf. If you're a fisherman, you would know what a catawba leaf is because
take a look
the
at
tree.
This is a big
Get
leaf.
your fishing worms from that. And this is a catawba leaf. I want you to feel the back of it and the texture.
It feels
like
almost
flannel.
like material. It feels like like flannel.
Okay. So you would use the trusty old castor oil,
Uh-huh.
and you rub the person down, and you wrap them up in this catawba leaf until the perspiration starts.
And that would cure fever.
High fever, bring it down. Okay.
Well, you know, let's talk a little bit more about this. Have a seat right here. I want to talk about how you got involved in all of this. I'll move this off to the back here. You know, I lived on a plantation myself, and I remember all of the stories about family cures and all of those things. But why did you feel it was important to resurrect it, or how did you retain all the information?
Like you live that. I live that. You know, living in a rural area where there were no physicians and people got sick, and you had midwives and threaters, people that treated. I got involved. I was always fascinated by folk medicine. I wondered how you could use a piece of string and a prayer and someone would be better the next day. So it really stuck in my mind. I guess it's embedded in my soul, you know, of my culture and the things that was used.
Now, folk medicine is something that's still practiced a tremendous amount today, isn't it?
Yes. I practice it in my home and my kids and my grandchildren.
How a lot of people would think of folk medicine as maybe voodoo, but it's not. There's a big difference.
It's a big difference. It's a big difference. Folk medicine, you use prayer because it was an integral part of the cure, your prayer. But voodoo is something, a mystical kind of stuff. You know, it's not the same. It's really not the same.
How dependent is these folk medicines? Do they really work?
They really do work. They really do work. But you have to have the faith. You have to have the faith and believe that it was going to work. And faith went in it, you know. And
well, you know, I remember as a young boy, and I remember it vividly, actually, spraining my hand and then getting in an automobile and going way back into the country and going to a traiteur or a healer who would actually just take your hand and make the little cross and pray on it. And actually, within a couple of days, it was better. Now, I don't know whether it was just better because the time went by.
You believed it was going to get better, and your parents felt that it was going to get better because that's why they brought you there, to get it treated.
Well, it was a very important part of plantation culture, but is it practiced a lot in homes today?
Well, I would think so, especially the elderly. You know, the elderly, they don't want to go to the doctor, so they still are using, I assume that they still use their old remedies. And I really believe that, you know, the doctor should ask them, are you taking any home remedy instead of any other medication? Because they're not going to tell you if they're taking turpentine and sugar because they had something, or casserole and whatever. And if that is known, then you could perhaps better treat them if you know that they're taking home remedies.
So they could actually go into a hospital then, having treated themselves at home with all these different things, and then conventional medicine wouldn't work.
Yeah, could create a bad problem there for them.
Yeah, and that happens a good bit, I would imagine. What other activities are you involved in? I know you do seminars and all.
Yeah, well, I do quite a bit of things. I'm just going to tell you a few. I work with handicapped students, and I make dolls, and I do seminars, and I do quilting. Different little things.
I'm going to come in and sit down and take one of your seminars, and good luck on the book that you're about to publish on folk medicine. And I can't wait to come and chat a little bit more about it. It's very interesting.
Okay, thanks for having me.
And thank all of y'all for coming by as we continue to cook up more of these great Taste of Louisiana. Let's take a look at this chicken over here.
Funding for this program was provided in part by Bruce Foods Corporation, makers of Bruce's Yams and other distinctive Louisiana-style food products. Additional funding is provided by the Louisiana Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism. Gumbo, etouffee, jambalaya, beignet. Come pass a good time in Louisiana and say things you've never seen before.
Chef John Folse's Plantation Celebrations, Recipes from Our Louisiana Mansions, is a full-color 335-page book containing food history, recipes, and over 150 photographs from these southern landmarks. For your copy, send a check or money order for $28.50 to Louisiana Public Broadcasting, 7860 Anselmo Lane, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 70810. Or use your credit card by calling toll-free 1-800-973-7246.